Welcome to your first video. Let me back up. Welcome to your second video in section 4.7, but it's the first video of the law of cosines, and then we'll also deal with the area of some triangles. But this takes the second half of lesson 4.7 in your book, so I've given you the text pages where it is. And this is cool because this will enable you to solve for an angle and a side of a triangle given the three sides. So now it's not a right triangle, and if I just tell you the three sides of the triangle, you can now give me the three angles with using this formula, the law of cosines. Or if I give you two sides of the triangle and the included angle, then you can figure out the other side and the other two angles. So let's go back and review really quickly. If you have a triangle that this is angle A, then the opposite side is lowercase a. If this is C, this is side C. If that is angle B, this is side B. Now let's talk about the formulas. You may say, oh, Ms. Reams, there's so many letters. Let's look at it, and there's a pattern. They're very easy to remember, and you really only need to memorize the first one because you'll see the pattern. So if you need to remember, you've got a squared, b squared, c squared. So the equations equal a side squared. Pick a squared. Then that equals the other two sides squared. You're going to take the sum. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared. And then you subtract 2 times the product of these two sides, b and c, and the cosine of the angle you want. So if this is a squared over here, then this is the cosine of a. Notice, this is b squared, this is the cosine of b. C squared, cosine of c. So if I'm trying to find, or if I have a squared and b squared and c squared, minus 2 times b and c, whatever's here, and the cosine of a. That's, I know, maybe easier said than done. You use it a few times and you'll see the pattern. So you really only need to write down one of them when I give you a quiz or a test. You need to have these memorized, but more importantly, the more you use them, you'll be able to apply them and then have them memorized. Let's look at an example. If I give you the three sides, that side A is 1.5, so go across from angle A, and that's 1.5. Side B is 1. There's angle B, so this must be side B. And side C is 2. Here's angle C. I want you to find angle A. So I want to know what this angle is. If that's the one I want, then I'm going to use the equation that uses the a squared. So let's write out the equation. That would be a squared, and try to do it without looking. A squared is the b squared plus c squared minus 2 times these two values, b and c, and then the cosine, because this is the law of cosines, of a. All right, and now we are simply plugging this in. So here we go. Let's pick another color. Let's try purple. All right. If I have a squared, so I have 1.5 squared equals b squared, which is 1 squared, plus 2 squared, minus 2 times b times c cosine a. All right, so 1.5 squared, I'm looking for a, cosine a, right? So I'm going to move everything else to the other side. And again, once you write this down, some of you are just going to pick up your calculator, go to town, you're going to do it in your head. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to write out the math, all right? Remember, this is minus this whole creature. So I'm first going to move these, all right? I'm aware that that is 1 plus 4, and that's 5, and you're just going to move 5 to the other side. You can do that. I'm going to write it out so you see the process. This would be 1.5 squared. I'm going to subtract the 1. I'm going to subtract the 4. I have that equal to negative 2 times 1 times 2 times cosine A. So equal to negative 4 cosine A. Okay. Now I'm going to divide by negative 4. I divide both sides by negative 4, and I'm going to get 0.6875 equals cosine of A. Well, you remember from way back in lesson 4.1, if I wanted to find the A or the theta, the angle, and I have the cosine of that, now I'm going to do inverse cosine, right? So the inverse of cosine of the 0.6875 is going to give me angle A, which is 46.57 degrees. Okay, and that's all I wanted. I didn't need to know, because all it asked for was angle A. It didn't ask for angles B or C, so I don't need to do any more. Okay, let's try another example. If I was given, let's see, example 2. Given H is 34 degrees, side J is 7, and side K is 10, I want you to find angle J, angle K, and side H. Okay? I want all of those determined. So I need to first draw a picture. So I'm going to have my picture here. I'm going to, let's see, let's just draw. Okay, I see that K is 10, so I'm going to make this 10. And J is 7, I'll make this 7, which makes this angle K, which makes this angle J, and this must be H, which is 34 degrees. All right, now I need to figure out the other two angles and the other side. So if you notice, you're given here two sides and an included angle. Okay, so you have to play with that first. You're going to have to figure out side H, because that works with your formula. So again, let's try to write down the formula. If I'm looking for H first, so if I have H squared, that would be my other two sides, which would be J squared and K squared minus 2 times the J and the K and the cosine of H. All right, and now we just plug everything in. So H squared, I don't know. J squared, I know, that's 7 squared. K squared, I know, that's 10 squared, minus 2 times 7 times 10 times the cosine of 34. Now you kind of like this one, this type of problem, because now you're just cranking that out in the calculator. Remember, this whole thing is one value. Don't forget that. So I plug that in, I get that H squared is equal to 32.935, but I'm not done. What do I need to do? Okay, I need to take the square root. So the square root gives me H, which is just 5.739. Okay, I'm going to round that to 5.74 as my H. Now let's look at the other two angles. Now if you're given a choice, you should try to find the largest angle first, which is opposite the longest side. Let me write that down here so that you can remember that. So if you are given the chance, if you're given a choice, let's put it that way, because you don't know whether to find J or K first, okay, you want to find the largest angle first. Let me also say, and we know from geometry that that is opposite the longest side. Now, I do have some students that prefer to use the law of sines that we learned in last lesson. And you may say, well, Ms. Reams, now that I know that H is 5.74, I have this relationship here of the angle and the side, and so I'm going to go back to law of sines. Yes, you are able to do that. However, I recommend if you start with the law of cosines to end with the law of cosines. It allows for less error, let me put it that way, and you won't have as many mistakes if you do it that way. So we're going to find, if I know the longest side now would be K, I don't know the longest side or angle would be K because that's the longest side. I also have J here. That would be opposite the 7. So if I'm trying to find K, which is the longest angle, largest angle, I'm going to use the formula that has K squared here, right? So let's write that out. And I may be running out of room down here on the bottom, but we'll try. All right, so K squared would equal the J squared plus the H squared minus the 2 times J and H and cosine of whatever's out here, K. Now when we plug that in, we are going to have K squared, which we know to be 10 squared, equals J squared, which is 7 squared, plus H squared, which we now know to be 5.74 squared, minus 2 times the 7 and the 5.74, and cosine of angle K. We don't know angle K, we're trying to figure that out. So this is like one of the example 1 that we did earlier. This is what we're trying to find, so we're going to have to subtract, move those to the other side, then multiply, get that product, and then divide by that. All right, so I'm going to write that out. I know you would just sit there and crank it out on the calculator, but I still want you to see what you're doing. So you have 100 minus the 49 minus, and this I don't know in my head, 5.74 squared. I'm going to divide it by this value right here, which is the 14 times that. Let's see, so that gives me, I'm just going to write out 14 times 5.74, and that's going to give me cosine K. Okay, I'm going to go grab my calculator. I'll be right back. All right, got my calculator. So when I calculated that, I got and you can see here, I got that sum, and then I divided it by the negative 14 times 5.74, and I got a negative 0.2246 as my cosine of K. And you remember, if I want K, now I do the inverse of cosine of this negative 0.2246, and that gives me angle K, which is 102.9, which I'm going to say is 103. Okay, I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to write that down. Angle K is 103. Well, if angle K is 103, how do we easily find J? We easily find that by just subtracting, right, from 180. So if I have 180 minus my 34 minus my now 103, that's going to give me angle J. And that comes out to be 43 degrees. Okay, so I have angle J. Let's go back up here. We did have already set this up. 43, and K we found to be 103. There we go. That probably bothers some of you that I've got all those colors in there. Sorry about that. We're going to come back in the next video and we'll do another example.